Good morning. I keep saying every time I need to give Bonnie a shorter bio, so I'll shorten it, Bonnie, I promise. What a great song, huh? There's this Netflix special on about the Beatles that's going on right now, and what I love studying about the Beatles, they were my older brother's music, and I really got into them. And me and my late older brother, we shared a lot of that Beatles stuff. He'd sit at the piano and we'd sing together, go on car trips to California, sing every song known by the Beatles. But what you see over and over with the Beatles music and the way that they handled they were the first group to ever come and handle the press in such a joking manner. But the reason was because they didn't take any of it seriously. They never thought they were going to last more than one record, so they had nothing to lose. But they, through all of their music and their early music, especially like that one too, was this joyous expectancy in everything that they did. Just listen, I want to hold your hand. I mean, you can't help but feel good when you hear that kind of music. And so I'm so happy that we're talking about affirmative prayer, one of my absolutely favorite things to do. And Cheryl wrote me and she said, is there any suggested readings you might have for Sunday? And I said, no, you'll come up with the right one. I know you always do. And she did. It was perfect. Tied in all of those different steps of what it takes to make affirmative prayer. Tied in that beautiful work from Matthew Fox. What a great writer. So, affirmative prayer. Wow. I love talking about it. I love doing it. I love practicing it. I love teaching it. So there's this quote that says, if the only prayer you ever said in your life was thank you, that would suffice. Of course, that was said by the German Catholic mystic Meister Eckhart, often confused with Eckhart Tolle, but not the same person, although he's also German and a mystic. Just a coincidence. So I love that. If the only prayer you ever said in your life was thank you, that would suffice. Let's break that down. Why would that suffice? Thank you, I think, is actually the perfect example of affirmative prayer that we could ever have, because it's just look at the word thank. The word thank, it's an active, present moment, like Cheryl was talking about, a present moment call to action. Thank, when you thank somebody, it's a verb. It's used to express or to assign blame, ironically, like, oh, thank you, when you say it like that, maybe. And then the word you, of course. You is referring to someone other than yourself, to something other than yourself, something greater than yourselves. When you put them together, thank you. Just beautiful. And I'm also going to be giving you 5 steps of how to construct an affirmative prayer a little later on, if you want to get your pencils out, or you can just go back to the YouTube video that Randy records and watch it later. So, you know that 90% of our thought is unconscious? 90% of our thinking is unconscious. And if you ever want to prove that to yourself, just sit down and try to meditate, Where are these thoughts? I didn't think that. Where's that thought coming from? So everything that we say, everything that we think, whether it's conscious, unconscious, metaconscious, is an affirmative prayer. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if we're saying to ourselves, oh, that's just my luck. Oh, I'm so clumsy. Oh, I'm so poor. Oh, nothing good ever happens to me. What are you doing? You're affirming. You're making firm. Okay, well then, God, Spirit, Universe hears you and says, okay, there you go. I'm so clumsy. Yeah, it goes through me too. But the thing about prayer is that the power behind prayers answered is absolute. But the way we use it is relative, okay? So the power that's behind prayer is an absolute power. It's a law. The way we use it is relative. Relative to what? Usually relative to our understanding of what it is. So let's break affirmative prayer down. I'm a Virgo, and we're really analytic, so it's right up my alley. Okay, so the whole idea is so simple that it eludes us. We're surrounded and immersed in this creative mind that responds to our thinking. It responds to the sum total of our thinking. That thinking can be conscious, unconscious, subconscious, collective, Ernest Holmes always talked about the race consciousness. He didn't mean the race in particular races. He meant the human race consciousness. We carry around a consciousness that we've had with us since 240,000 years ago when we were roaming on the plains, on the prairies of North Africa, trying to figure out how this all works. And all of a sudden we came together 40,000 years ago and decided we're going to raise crops together. We're going to domesticate animals. And then we started to think, there's a cycle going on here. Maybe something else is greater than us. Maybe if we offer sacrifices, if we offer supplication, if we ask for certain things. And that was the start of religion and spirituality in some ways, which is a whole other subject for another time. But just to talk about what affirmative prayer is, it's the answered thoughts of it's the total sum of your thinking, unconscious, fully conscious, subconscious, even race conscious. So, affirmative prayer is deciding to understand that our use of this power, and with adding that attention and intention to our thinking, is what affirmative prayer can be broken down to. Easy, right? Easy as making tacos. So I love tacos. I saw this meme over Christmas that says, it's harder to kidnap people who weigh more, so eat tacos. Eat more tacos. And I agree with that. And so I affirm that, and so it is. But like what Cheryl was so beautifully illustrating with her reading, we have to prepare. And she said, we are prepared now to receive whatever message is coming through me from Source, from Spirit, from God, and what you take and you meld into your way of living, to your way of thinking. So we have to prepare. We have to prepare correctly for affirmative prayer. In other words, we have to separate the chaff from the wheat, so to speak. So what I sometimes say, and I've been using this quote here, I've been using this affirmation when I sit down to do a treatment, when I sit down to pray, when I sit down to manifest. I've been saying this probably about 13 years now, and it's really done me well. And it says, I stop and I say, I do accept this good. I do believe my prayer is answered. I do affirm the presence of love, of friendship, of happiness, of prosperity, of health, and of peace, whatever that need may be. And nothing in me denies, rejects, or refutes it. I do accept it now. That's some powerful stuff, isn't it? I mean, that's just saying, I'm connecting with whatever is hearing and answering my prayers, and nothing in me can reject that. Nothing in me is going to block that realization and that answer prayer, prayer answered. There you go. So Ernest Holmes would say the secret of prayer and its power is in outward life depends on an unconditional faith in and reliance upon this inner presence. Ernest Holmes for us in this century now is sometimes kind of hard to read because he used a lot of clauses, and he would have sentences that were 2 paragraphs long, and so you try to break that up. But his point is simple there, that the secret to that prayer and that power is going to depend on your unconditional faith and your reliance upon that inner presence where that faith is being generated. So he also said it's a recognition of Spirit's omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence, and a realization of humanity's unity with Spirit. So the answer to prayer is already in the prayer when it is uttered and thought. Now, I read many moons ago where he was saying the answer to the prayer is in the prayer itself. Now, if you really think about that and break that down and focus on it, the answer to the prayer is in the prayer itself. Why is that? Well, because we're not praying blindly. We're not just casting chaff into the wind, but we simply know, I'm going to pray. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to pray now, and that prayer is going to go somewhere. It's going to do something. That's why he's talking about the answer to the prayer is in the prayer itself. And he also talks about, and teacher Jesus said to pray aright. We don't use that word anymore, do we? But it's talking about praying aright. And what that means is when we're in any opposition to the fundamental harmony of the laws of life, of the laws of affirmative prayer, that it's not going to work, because God or Spirit cannot answer prayers which have no meaning, if you think about it. God or Spirit cannot answer prayers which have no meaning. So it's that intention that we're going to meld with that affirmative prayer. It just gets me so excited. I'm sorry. So all of creation, we've all received the original blessing, yet we've been conditioned to focus on the negative in ourselves and on others. When you think of a negative phrase that you've said aloud or thought to yourself, some examples that I had a little earlier, that stems from a sense of shame rather than your inherent dignity. Isn't that a beautiful phrase? Your inherent dignity. It's not something you have to get out and earn and prove yourself to or anything. You have an inherent dignity that's in line with whatever that power that you think is answering your prayers or hearing them. So you can turn phrases around like, I am unlovable. You can instead say, I am infinitely loved. Instead of saying, I don't have enough, you say, I have everything that I need. Instead of saying, I am stupid, which you maybe heard that from your childhood, maybe, you say, I have the mind of God. So do you see how just turning those around to the positive quality? And like if you ever think of yourself, I am worthless, which we all certainly can at times, you can simply say, I am precious in God's eyes, I am honored, and God loves me. That's a big statement there. God loves me. True prayer stimulates a belief in good, which nothing else can, and often causes the one who prays to rise to the point in mentality where the healing work may be done according to the laws of the universe, which is the law of mind. This is praying aright. So let me dissect that just a little bit. In order for the affirmative prayer to be effective, you're going to need to rise to the level in your mentality, in your thinking, that yes, indeed, this prayer is effective, that all prayers are effective. My word has power because my word is connected to a source within me. So it's a beautiful circle that's just waiting for you to recognize how to use it. So I'm going to talk about spiritual mind treatment, that it is affirmative prayer. And spiritual mind treatment, for those of you who might not know, well, this is a church of religious science, and that science part is a big aspect of it. We know that there are steps, there are ways to get our mind in the right thinking, to receive what we need to receive, to create this world that we're trying to create. Of course, that all sounds intellectual and really good, but I'm a fan of The Next Generation, Star Trek. Anybody watch that? So there was Captain Picard, Jean-Luc Picard. He was awesome. He's like the best captain ever, I think. And so when he would give an order, like to go invade the Klingons or something, he'd say, make it so. Make it so, he would say. Of course, we being New Thought people would say, and so it is. We make it so, and so it is. We just answer. So just by clinging on, no pun intended, just by... I know, right? So the phrase "thank you" is an affirmative prayer. The word "make it so," even what we say when we're in agreement about something, and we always say, "and so it is." That's what we usually say. Those are affirmative prayers. Just and so it is. I mean, you don't know how many times I'm driving across this country, and there's like crazy cars in front of me, and I do little affirmative prayers constantly, praying for everyone else's safety. But what I say is, I know that everyone here is in cooperation for the safety and the highest good for all concerned. You have to, instead of letting the fear and the panic seep in, I'm constantly doing those affirmative prayers, which really help me. And if you ever need some affirmations, Florence Scovel Shinn, she had great affirmations, right? She's the Laws of Prosperity. She has just books and books and books. There's a lot of nice websites. She has so many affirmations. In my house, right near my sink, I have affirmations on this side and affirmations on this side, and I kind of trade them out so that as I'm doing the dishes, I don't have a dishwasher, and so, me, and so as I'm doing the dishes, I'm reading those affirmations. And so when friends come over and they start doing the dishes, they'll say, "What are these?" And I'll say, "Well, read them," So don't be shy about your affirmations. Okay, affirmative prayer. This is a powerful method for setting the creative process in motion. It is a direct, focused, and organized method using these 5 steps, which I got directly from Ernest Holmes on how to construct a prayer. This is also used by the Center for Spiritual Living website. When you come to them with a prayer request, you can construct it on your own, or you can have them do it for you. But it's really more powerful, and it's always going to be more effective, so if you do it on your own. So these are the 5 steps. So the first step is recognition. First step in creating an affirmative prayer is recognition. Well, we begin with a recognition that there is one life. That life is God. You may call God by any name that you want: Spirit, Universe, Creator, Allah, Buddha, Infinite Mind, the Force, the Light, whatever. It's up to you how it resonates with you. And then you say, "I know there is only one power and one life, and this is the life of God." Or you can say, "I know there is an infinite spirit that I call the universe, and I recognize the one power, the one presence, and the love of all that is." Or use whatever words just come out of your mouth, and that spirit can speak through you too. And so you write that recognition statement there. The second step is unification. Now that's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll get into it a little bit. Unification with affirmative prayer, we affirm that the same spirit that God is, we are. We are of God. We are some part of God. We are divine emanations of the Most High, and since God is all there is, there can be nothing outside of that God. Therefore, no one is separate from God. So you feel your unification with whatever power that is greater than yourself. Feel that. That's the unification part. And you can add whatever you want in there. Like, I recognize that my unity is with the one mind that created the stars, or puts the heavens in their place. And then you write that unification step down. The third part is realization. To realize is to make real, like affirm is to make firm. So realize is to make real. So it's the realization of the qualities or the attributes of God which you want to embrace within your call to, when you call forth your own awareness. So there's a unification, then there's the realization that, yes, I am part of that consciousness. I am part of that power that answers prayers. I am one with that power that answers prayers. And you can say that, I know that the divine qualities of peace and power and plenty and wisdom are already within me, and I embrace them now. Or you can say, all that God is, I am. I love that one. I step forth into my true divinity, saying yes to my prosperity, guidance, order, harmony, health, and love. You know, I've used these so many times over the years. It's just, as I was reading through them, I was thinking, wow, this is working in my life now. I mean, I'm living proof. And of course, we really can't tell the world what we can't prove. We can't share with the world what we can't prove our own selves, can we? Fourth step is Thanksgiving. My favorite time of the year. No, just kidding. I'm not a turkey fan, so. Well, unless it's turkey mole or turkey adobada or enchiladas. Okay, I take that back. Okay, so Thanksgiving is the fourth step. An attitude of gratitude is essential to establish the new intention in our lives. Giving thanks, well, we're declaring that it is already done. Like in the beginning, when I opened with the perfect affirmative prayer, thank you. We're grateful for knowing that it is already done in the mind of God. And in this Thanksgiving step, you may want to add something like, I'm so grateful for the revelation of the spiritual truth in me. Or simply by saying something like, I am so happy and grateful that I now, then add whatever that prayer. It could be for health. It can be something so small. Whatever is going to be short enough and small enough and powerful enough to resonate with you, instead of just speaking words that don't really resonate with you. But I would encourage you to go to the CSL.org website or you can watch this video and learn these steps and write them down. Or you can say is with great gratitude that I accept this transformation of consciousness for myself. I'm grateful for my perfect health and wholeness and well-being. Was it Coué who had the process of hugging yourself and simply saying every day and every way, I am getting better and better? He had people do that as an affirmative prayer to break their pattern of unconsciousness. And if you tell yourself something enough times, or if you hear something about yourself enough times, you're going to believe it. And I think in some level, that's what affirmative prayer is trying to break down, the domestication, I guess. That's what Don Miguel Ruiz calls it. We come in and we learn that these symbols are letters, and by putting those symbols together, you form a word, and the word forms a language. And I heard this great story the other day that that the way that you imagine and the way that you read and dream depends on your language. So in other words, if it's somebody, say, maybe from an Arabic or Hebrew language, will think in terms, they will organize these tests that they gave them from right to left, because that's the way that it's written, as opposed to left to right, the way that we in the West do it, or English language or the Romance language people do it too. So how you're acculturated, how you develop your own language forms the way that you think about the world, forms the way you see the world. So in some sense, affirmative prayer is kind of setting that aside and saying, that's all part of my human experience, but my divine experience knows that I'm already connected. I can think the right words and I can feel the right words. One of the nicest things about that I came across, Ernest Holmes said this in, I think he may have said it in Living the Science of Mind. He said, one of the greatest realizations that was a surprise to him is that he believes that back of everything, it's the way he would speak, back of everything, the power behind everything, all creation, even God itself, is feeling. So he said, feeling is the core of all creation. If you don't have a feeling that you're attaching to this affirmative prayer, it's going to be effective, but it just won't necessarily come about in the way that you would like. So as long as you attach that feeling, it's so important to have that feeling, what we're talking about, of gratitude, of thanksgiving, of unification, of realization. These are all feeling things. And, for most of us men, we grew up thinking that feelings were when you put your hand on the stove, and it feels hot. Men always, I love, being amongst friends and just using this experiment. Men will say, I think about this. Women will say, I feel about this. And so for men to understand that feeling is so important. And that's why I love that Ernest Holmes brought that out. But he said he was just as surprised as anybody. And so he talks a lot about connecting that feeling of whatever feeling that it is, of gratitude, of appreciation, of thankfulness, of prosperity, of health, all those things that work into how we want our lives to be. Whether it's our personal lives, whether it's the world at large, it doesn't matter because it's a reflection, isn't it? Step 5, release. Release step is so important because this is the scary part for us humans, because we're like thinking, okay, but it needs to happen this way and this way, and it needs to happen this way. And we put a lot of conditions on how we want our prayers to be answered. Well, it doesn't work that way. So by releasing it, we're simply saying, I know, I'm going to trust that this is going to be for the highest good of all concerned. I like to add that to everything. So when you release your affirmative prayer, you let go and you let God. That's a popular phrase that we use a lot. And you're turning that affirmative declaration of truth entirely over to the infinite love and spirit and the allness that is God. It's a pretty important step because if you hold on to it, nothing can take place. So release is also an act of trust. You release your prayers trusting in all the good of God, and you release it knowing that it's truly done. You may want to simply say, I release it, I let it go, I let Spirit do its perfect work. What I say is, I always say at the end of every treatment, I say, it is done, it is now complete, it is now perfect. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is my life now. I say that at the end and the beginning of every treatment. It's kind of like parentheses around this affirmative prayer. Okay, here it is. So I'm going to end with an Iroquois prayer. But before I do, just kind of want to sum up by saying you are already praying affirmatively. You're already launching, as Abraham calls them, rockets of desire. With every thought, if you say something like, I would like to go to Aruba, well, guess what? That's thoughts being born, and God, universe is conspiring to make that happen for you. The problem is so many of us have so many of those prayers that we're throwing out there. We're not really focused on what we really want. So what would, let's say going to Aruba, we would focus on that feeling of freedom, that feeling of unstructured time. You can have that now too. So by breaking that down too, that'll help you get in line with how you want to be feeling. Do you want to be feeling free? Do you want to be feeling happy, unstructured, pampered, cared for? Yeah, who doesn't, right? So affirmative prayer is already happening. You're already doing it now. Each of us is already sending affirmative prayers out by every utterance, by every unconscious thought that we're holding on to. So why not add some intention behind that? Why not add some realization and some unification behind that? And by having the courage and the faith to just simply say, thank you, right? Just the perfect affirmative prayer. If you know anything about his life, he was kind of a rabble-rouser. Meister Eckhart. He was Dominican, but then he also was tried for heresy because he was a little too free-thinking for that time. So he of course took off like so many rock stars do to France to go hide. The Rolling Stones did that. The Beatles did that. So. And unfortunately, he passed away before the trial was done. But you can read his sermons and some of his writings. They're really more than just that he came up with. So I'm going to end with an Iroquois prayer. I read something from Richard Rohr this morning, and he was talking about how our creation stories that each of us has, that our own races has, that our own cultures have, can inform how we experience the world. And they got me thinking about the creation stories that I tell when I'm on the road. So many of the creation stories are stories of emergence, stories of gifts being given. So there's, with most indigenous people of this continent, there is a sense of reverence everywhere we go. There is always a sense of appreciation and the ancestry that's connected to that. So that made me think of this Iroquois prayer. It says, we return thanks to our mother, the earth, which sustains us. We return thanks to the rivers and streams which supply us with water. We return thanks to all herbs which furnish medicines for the cure of diseases. And we return thanks to the corn and to her sisters, the beans and the squash, which give us life. We return thanks to the bushes and the trees, which provide us with fruit. We return thanks to the wind, which moving through the air has banished disease. We return thanks to the moon and the stars, which has given us their light when the sun was gone. We return thanks to our grandfather, Hino, who has given us his rain. We return thanks to the sun that has looked down upon the earth with a beneficent eye. And lastly, we return thanks to the Great Spirit, in whom is embodied all goodness, and who directs all things for the good of his children. So as you go out in the world today, remember to say thank you. So this is me thanking you, and so it is.